What do you do when you're standing at the edge of something new, or even just in the scary parts of contemplating a change, but you have no idea what comes next? Feedback from my last solo episode, number 35, about my transition out of teaching and my next steps confirmed what I already knew. Many people, educators especially, are worried about how many more years they have left in them and how to respond to feeling the mixed emotions that come along with being in those feelings. This episode is all about giving yourself permission to not have it all figured out. There is this pressure to have a 5-year plan, especially teachers who've lived by bells and calendars for decades. I remember how I felt the day after I resigned, or especially the day after I got the email saying the school board had approved my resignation, and I still didn't have a job locked in or secured. I felt totally unmoored, but also still optimistic. So for anyone standing at a crossroads, unsure of what's next, this conversation is meant to offer comfort, guidance, and a gentle push toward trusting the process. I see you out there. You don't need to know the whole path. You just need the courage to take the next step. Today, I'll share what helped me sit with the unknown, what I've learned from others who've been here, and how you can trust yourself even when the road isn't clear. I'll offer specific advice and resources from professionals in this area with the hope of helping you gain some clarity with your thoughts. So let's dig in. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm Rachel, and I started this podcast during my 29th and last year as a high school teacher. The goal of my work with Life's Next Lesson Plan, as well as my Live and Learn Patreon, is to create a connection where we are all teachers. We all have lessons and stories to share that can help others. I'm so fortunate to be able to extend the 4 walls of my previous classroom to an unlimited audience, where we can all learn from each other. And my guests are some of the most inspirational people with the best stories and lessons I know, which is why I want to share them with you. Their words are something everyone should hear. It is my hope that you are able to take away something from each episode to apply to your own life, whether that be a career search, path to a more fulfilling life, or new ideas on current topics. Before we begin today, I just want to say I understand the feelings, the mixed feelings that come with leaving a career after 3 decades. That was part of your identity, that you poured your heart and soul into, that affected others' lives. There is guilt. There is guilt from other people. There are a lot of messages, okay? And this was not a decision that I all of a sudden one day woke up and made. I had been having thoughts and conversations and trying to plan for it for years. Now, there did become a time after a conversation where I was like, I have to do this. I have to just rip the Band-Aid, or I'm going to continue to stay in my comfort zone. But that did not just happen overnight. That was after years of conversations and crying and mixed emotions. So please know that I understand all of it, okay? Now, also understand that I am, anybody who knows me, a recovering perfectionist, a very type A, firstborn Leo planner, okay? Any of you who know my life story know that I was the oldest child of 4 and a first-generation college student. I put myself through college working multiple jobs. From the time that I was 18, it was, on me, okay? So I have never been without a job. I have always known that if I am going to quit a job, I have to already have a job secured. This is the first time in my life now. I did have months and months and months to prepare to get a job, but I was in limbo. Like, I made the decision, I resigned, the school board approved my resignation, and I still did not have a job. Okay. And at the end there was sort of putting all my eggs into one basket. Although, as I did share in my last episode, I had a fallback. So it was the last resort, working, taking my part-time job that I hold just because I'm that kind of insecure person who needs security financially. I've grown up that way. If you listen to my last guest episode on money scarcity mindset, there is a reason I was drawn to her and her message. So I did have that. And that is what ultimately, I said to myself, it is that bad that if I quit teaching and I have to work for, it's not minimum wage, but it's not much more, and be a manager at this big retailer, I will do it. And at any point, I can still do that, and I will hold on to that job for 4 hours a month until I feel like I don't need to. That's just who I am. So know that, okay? It is totally normal to feel freaked out, scared. Believe me. I have a daughter starting college, and I've done this at the same time. So all I know is that I really had to dig into personal development and switch my mindset to one of abundance instead of scarcity. I have lived my whole life in a scarcity mindset, and that's why I brought the last guest on for you. That's why I'm going to be sharing some people today who I think can help us switch these mindsets a little bit and know that it's okay. Now, one thing I do want to warn against, especially for teachers, and again, I don't know except for the transitioning teacher program I went through, which is called AIDA, Applied Instructional Design Academy. And actually, it was very well done. Every single person in my cohort was an educator who successfully transitioned out of education and into instructional design. They're all employed instructional designers now, every single one but me. Most of them are working hybrid or remotely and enjoying it. So they pursued it. Some got jobs right away. Some it took quite a long time, like a year and a half, I would say the longest. But there are many posts on LinkedIn for transitioning teachers because this is a huge market right now. Okay, so please be careful. They're very convincing. It's desperate times, right? So we want help. And by all means, if you feel you find one that you think could help you, I just want you to beware that this is big business right now. And vet, if you do end up giving your money to someone, please be sure to vet them, okay? So with that, I'm going to talk today about some references that we can use to help us through this transition. Some TED Talks, some books, some personal development, which I think, the more you fill your mind with positive thinking, the more you manifest. And I never manifested anything in my life until the last year or 2 or 3 of my life. I now believe it works. If you have a list and you will not settle and you keep saying to yourself, I am going to get what's on this list. I deserve it. I'm worthy. I've worked hard. I'm a good person. It will happen. And again, I've had a lot of guests who have stories that confirm that. And now I'm actually a living, breathing example of that. And it's like, that'll never happen for me, right? That was always my mindset. So the first resource I'm going to talk about today is Emily P. Freeman. She's a best-selling author. She's the host of the Next Right Thing podcast. And she has a very gentle, kind of soulful approach to her space. And she focuses on seasons of decision-making, change, or overwhelm. She draws from her background in spiritual formation and creative leadership to guide readers through practical yet grace-filled decisions. So her mission is basically to help people stop the constant striving for clarity and instead develop the inner confidence to take the next right step peacefully, even when you don't have the full picture, which for people like me, I always wanted a crystal ball. Just tell me how it happened, how it all works out. I've had to let go of that mindset. Okay. So the next right thing, if I kind of pulled like the top 5 takeaways, and number 1, I've already mentioned that you don't need the full picture to move forward. This is the one and only time I've kind of done that. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out. Just do the next right thing. So this book talks about kind of analysis paralysis, right? Where we sort of paralyze ourselves waiting for this moment of clarity. And really what we should be doing, and this is what I ended up doing, is to just take one small step at a time. And eventually all of those steps will compound into clarity and action. And I've always said on this podcast, baby steps. And this is a prime example of that. Number 2, decision fatigue is real, and simplifying the process helps. So she talks about modern life, how overwhelming it is with choices and noise. And the antidote for that is not more information. Instead, it's stillness and reflection and asking better questions, journaling, turning inward. I would again mention my free identity journal, getting in touch with your top 3 core values, what you want your next chapter to look like. Okay. Number 3, she says to make room for soul space, meaning create space for your soul to breathe. I know for some of you this might sound woo-woo, but this is more just like stop, take a breath, stop rushing. It's not a race. Sit with your thoughts, listen to your intuition. Had many guests talk about that. And I would say especially women, we get a pull, and oftentimes we have to ignore it. It's not the right time, or I can't put myself first. And again, that's where I think an identity journal can really help. Like, what is my inner voice saying to me? And if I took one step to follow it, that's what my journal walks you through. What would be one step? And then what would be the next baby step? And eventually you're there. Number 4, naming your desire clarifies direction. This is what I talked about all the way back to dating, when I said I'm never dating again, and then eventually decided that I would. And everybody told me, make a list, make a list, make a list, and do not settle for what's not on that list. Again, you have to be okay being alone. You have to be okay. Maybe the first step in your transition is not your forever step, right? But it is one step forward in the direction of what you're dreaming or hoping for. So first you have to name without judgment what you want, and don't listen to what other people think you want or think you should do or think you have. I did that for many years and it made me miserable. And so my life doesn't have to look like anybody else's life. And I think when you get to be my age, it's definitely a benefit of your 50s and 60s. You don't care what people think about your decisions because they're not living my life, right? They don't have to wake up every day and do what I do. So that brings me to the last, number 5 takeaway for this resource, and that is let peace, not fear, be your guide. Oh boy, decisions made from anxiety and decisions made from peace are very different. I made a lot of decisions from anxiety that all ended up pretty poorly. And until you are comfortable and at peace with yourself, it's going to be a rocky road. Okay, so you need to choose a path that aligns with your truest self. What matters to you? Your core values. And again, go to lifesnextlessonplan.com/freebies, and my free journal walks you through these steps. Okay, we're going to transition to my second resource, which is William Bridges, PhD. He was an American author, a speaker, and a consultant, best known for his work with transitions and the psychological process people go through when facing change. So he had a groundbreaking book called Transitions: Making Sense of Life's Changes, that introduced the idea that change is external, what people see on the outside, but transition is internal, all the work you did internally. So he has a Bridges transition model that a lot of organizations have used. It's big in personal development to help people move through major life and career changes with more awareness and resilience. So he has this neutral zone that he talks about, which is what I'm referencing today, that it might be messy, which is necessary. So this like middle phase of a transition, the space between an ending and a new beginning, which is what I'm in now, it's very uncomfortable, disorienting, it's uncertain. I mean, especially before I had locked in a job, living in limbo is psychologically exhausting. It's exciting because, again, as long as you're taking steps in the right direction and being open-minded, it's uncertain, but it can still be exciting. And this is where the real transformation happens. There's a little bit of risk and a little bit of messiness. But what good comes from not taking a risk? Again, that comfort zone is safe and secure, but is it happy, right? So this neutral zone, a couple of takeaways from that is this idea of limbo. And he actually would argue that, limbo is not a bad thing. It's actually a crucial development stage. So this neutral zone may feel like limbo, feel like being stuck, but it's actually an essential time of reflection, experimentation, and realignment. And now that I look back, I definitely see that. Being in this space allows for you to detach from who you were and begin imagining who you might become. And this is where that identity work comes into play, right? So this is time between your old reality and your new one. And again, it's okay to mourn and to celebrate the old reality. Those feelings are normal, okay? Number 2, your productivity may dip, but your creativity rises. So you may feel foggy or less effective during this time, kind of scatterbrained. So Bridges would argue that the neutral zone is when you get new ideas. Well, looky here. I started a podcast during this period. For some reason, I had a pull to do something out of my comfort zone and very creative. And so I went with my imagination, my vision, and I followed it. Still no idea where it's going to lead me, but the journey, enjoying the journey and not the end destination is new for me. And I'm definitely enjoying the journey. I have no idea when or where or what the end destination is. People keep asking me, are you going to keep doing your podcast? Are you going to keep doing your podcast? And I keep saying, I'll do what feels right. Right? If I'm still enjoying it, if I still have time for it, yes. If not, then I'll make a decision that's right for me. And you should do the same. Resisting this sort of neutral zone delays your growth. So again, rushing this part to skip to get to the good part, which is something that I tend to want to do, can backfire. This impulsivity, right? And trying to resist the discomfort can lead to burnout, poor decisions, and needing to repeat the cycle again. So take your time. Do it right the first time. right? We're a rush, hustle culture. And I really did do this because I believed that it would pay off, and it did. Number 4, rituals and reflection help you navigate. So, as I've already said, this is a great time to journal, sit with yourself and your feelings and thoughts, have conversations with mentors who you think have good advice and who can guide you. That's part of what I've done with my guests here, right? It forced me to have these conversations. One of my favorite books is A Curious Mind, where, Brian Grazer, the film producer, had a list of people that he wanted to have curiosity conversations with. That's what I'm doing. How fun is that? To say, I want to talk to this person and I think the world should hear their message and it could be helpful to someone. So I've brought some people to you, but, also I've tried to seek out people who could help me say goodbye to my previous identity and open their arms to what might come next and who might understand it and help with the transition. So hopefully you have found some of those guests helpful in that realm as well. And then lastly, clarity comes after the confusion. So you have to sit with that aimless feeling for a while, okay? But if you stay in it and you see it through, you will eventually emerge to clarity, not being forced, but naturally when the time is right. Easier said than done. Totally get it. Lots of whining on my part of can it just be wrapped up already? It took 4 months, right? Of unknown. And even longer before that, before my job conversation started. I was interviewing for years with nothing. So this is the time again for you to recognize your values, your passions, and how you want to shape your future. So don't fear the fog. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's where transformation happens. Okay? So we're going to take a little break here before I move into my last 2 resources and my takeaways for today. 100% of men and women have hormones. And with the increased presence of processed foods and environmental toxins, it's more important than ever to make mindful choices in the products we use every day. That's why I trust Hue and Grace, high-performing, clean products designed to support hormone health while reducing exposure to harmful chemicals. Because this topic has been my primary focus since ending birth control in 2024 in an attempt to regulate my changing midlife hormones, after making healthy swaps in my diet, personal care products, and exercise routine, I've been able to lower my dose of anxiety medication I once relied very heavily on, and have restored balance to my nervous system and cleared up the brain fog I was experiencing in perimenopause. Hue and Grace has played a key role in this transformation, offering safe, effective, non-toxic solutions that support my wellness journey. If you listened to episode 16 with certified Mayo Clinic health and wellness coach Tracy Danielson Mitchell, you heard her talk about the importance of hormone health. To share with you everything I did throughout my journey to balance my hormones, I did a deep dive on my Live and Learn Patreon about all of the tests and supplements that I use in order to navigate this journey in my 50s. To find this episode, you can just visit patreon.com/liveandlearn. Some of my favorite products I use every day include Hue and Grace's Hydrate and Detox that contains powerful antioxidants, electrolytes, and prebiotic fiber. Their popular blue drink you see me drinking on Instagram is their Triple Boost Hormone Support Protein Powder with blue spirulina that I mix with their daily collagen supplement. I also keep my skin hydrated and smooth with their spray-on body oil. I love putting this on before going out, and it gives my aging skin a more dewy look. I've also switched out my hair care products to Hue and Grace's Your Best Hair Day line, with all natural ingredients that help nourish my hair and stretch out time between washes. If you're on this journey with me and are interested in exploring Hue and Grace's trusted non-toxic products, for 10% off and free shipping, you can use my discount link at hueandgrace.com/lessonplan and reach out anytime via email at nextlessonplan@gmail.com with questions. Live and learn with me as we focus on living fully and feeling our best. Visit hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to see how easy it is to start making some healthy swaps on your way to non-toxic living. It is time for Ask the Teacher Anything, and today's first question is, how am I building community in this new phase of life? Such a good question. I talked about this a lot in the identity episode of, when parts of your identity fall away, you seem kind of lost, and you need to surround yourself with maybe new people who fit the new version of you better. And so I joined an all-female bike group, but it also is kind of a social group. So I just started, went to the first meeting. We actually had a cooking class together, which was super fun. There's a bunch of bike rides and trips planned, as well as other outings and yoga. So really enjoying that so far. What I love, and this is how I set up my Instagram too, is that anybody that I'm following is someone that I would like to aspire to be more like. And these women, such butt kickers and such great people. Like, they're energetic, they're healthy, they're fun, they're vibrant. Some of them are current teachers, retired teachers, lawyers. I mean, you name it, but their number one value, or one of their top 3 values, is health and vibrancy and being active. And that aligns with my values. So that is one of the things that I've done. I'm also trying to, again, when you're busy with teaching and you're so exhausted, you always say, I wish I had more time for this, or I wish I had more time to see these people. And so I've tried to reach out more and make a point. I typically am the type of person who waits for someone to contact me. But I've told myself that if it's important to me, then I will reach out. And that is hard for me, I'm going to admit, but I've been doing more of that. And so just, again, trying to put myself in situations, you are who you surround yourself with. And so trying to find community and people who align with my core values. Great question. Love that question. Second question, how do I balance honoring my past with embracing my future? Well, this has been... I'm going to be honest, when I'm recording this, I have 20 days to go in teaching. And when it airs, it'll be even probably half that. It has been really hard having made this decision over 100 school days ago, and sticking with it, because I probably stayed a year too long. So I have to continually remind myself to stay positive, to focus on the positives. I have really nice classes here at the end. They have done some really incredible work, some of the best work of my career, really trying to focus on that, really trying to focus on, the parts of my legacy that I've shared with you, these guests who I taught in my classroom, or educators and professionals who I've connected with because of my long teaching career. And I'm proud of my career. I'm not so proud of, how I've felt the last few years, but I've done my best and tried to stick it out. And overall, wow, I had such an amazing career. I worked with such brilliant people, and that is going to be really, really hard. But I also know oh my gosh, I'm going to have some of the best bosses. It's funny because some of the teachers that I currently teach English with were actually classmates of my bosses. And they're like, that's going to be your boss? Oh my gosh, like, you're so lucky. So, who knows? I don't know what the next chapter is going to bring. I don't know if it ends up being, my forever until retirement. I'm not sure. I'm just so excited and happy that I found something that met my list, right? These are the things that I want to have, and they met that. And, all you can do is keep taking those baby steps forward. So thank you so much. I love these questions. I hope you continue to enjoy them. Please send more to me on Instagram at Life's Next Lesson Plan, or on my website. There's a question box at lifesnextlessonplan.com. So with that, we're going to continue on with my last two resources. I'm going to leave my favorite one for last and then give you some action steps and takeaways for today. So our next person is Bruce Feiler, who's a best-selling author, speaker, and journalist known for exploring themes of meaning, family, and navigating change. He has a book called Life is in the Transitions, Mastering Change at Any Age. And he draws from over 225 in-depth life story interviews to create a modern guide for navigating personal upheaval. His work is deeply human, research-backed, and full of empathy for the messiness of life. So I really like that. He also has this term that he's created called lifequake, which is a sudden, dramatic, and often unexpected disruption. So this is something you don't plan for, like a divorce, a job loss, an illness, an identity crisis that really shakes your foundation. And these sometimes are inevitable, right? Like you're going to have maybe one or probably more lifequake occur. And so life is not linear. It's full of twists and turns and these life quakes. And so the key isn't necessarily avoiding them. It's just being prepared to navigate them when and if they happen. Okay, so top 5 takeaways from Life is in the Transitions. Number 1, disruption is normal, not a detour. So in these interviews and stories, Feiler found that people experience a major lifequake on average about every 12 to 18 months. Certainly my life feels like that. And a truly disruptive big one, 3 to 5 times in life. And I can identify with that. And, every lifequake has a transition attached. As hard as these things are, and I will attest to the fact that, you don't know sometimes if you're going to make it out. Definitely stronger when you come out on the other side, and certainly more knowledgeable. So although you may not have control of this happening to you, you certainly have control of how you move through it, right? So I think he's going to echo a lot of the things you've already heard, that there's a grieving, right? And a letting go of what was. There's, these 3 stages. There's the messy middle, this uncertainty and experimentation and maybe limbo. And then there's the new beginning, and it's an integration and a reinvention, and that can be messy too. And so just giving yourself grace and understanding where you are in the process can bring calm and clarity. Okay, and then reframing your own story to make meaning out of chaos is one of his suggestions too. And so telling your own story can help you heal and actually make you feel less alone. So people ask me a lot, how can you be so vulnerable on your podcast? And it actually does make you feel less alone, because people do reach out and share their own stories, or again, become vulnerable with you based on things they're going through because you have had the courage to share it. And I think that is what is important. So I kind of rushed through his takeaways pretty quickly, but I want to get to the last one, my favorite one. So I think again, if you love real life stories like I do, more of that journalistic, real life nonfiction, I think this book would be really cool of hearing real people's stories and reminders that, this is part of life and you can't avoid it, but you can learn from it. Okay. Favorite for last is Glennon Doyle. And oh my God, her book Untamed was life-changing for me. And she has a podcast with her wife and her sister, and now a brand new book that's just sitting here waiting for me called We Can Do Hard Things, same title as their podcast. And I'm trying to finish an academic book first before I dig into it, but rest assured, I'll probably have another podcast about that book itself because I'm sure it's packed with great takeaways. But this, We Can Do Hard Things, everybody has heard this. This is like Glennon Doyle's rallying cry for her followers. And she's so real and has been so vulnerable. And I think that's what has inspired me and why I like her and why so many people gravitate to her. And, she prides herself on being messy and having fear and anxiety and not having it all figured out, but sharing the messy steps of it and facing the fear with truth and love. And one of her quotes that I love from Untamed is that, being human is not about feeling happy. It's about feeling everything. Of course, right? We all have feelings and we feel deeply, which she does. So I think the top 5 takeaways, if you can boil her wisdom down to 5, her philosophy, number 1, clarity comes through action, not overthinking. And this is what we've talked about before, is that just waiting for clarity or reacting too quickly can backfire. And so you have to take small, brave actions that align with your inner knowing. And she always uses this phrase, your inner knowing, your intuition, right? Your core values. Yes, 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 yes. She also has a journal, an Untamed journal that corresponds with her book Untamed. And I would highly recommend that as well. Number 2 takeaway, pain is a signal, not a problem. I mean, we all feel pain, right? And a lot of us try to avoid it and see it as an enemy, but it can also be a guide. There's my dog. He feels strongly also. Emotional discomfort isn't something to avoid. It's a signal for change or growth or deeper honesty with ourselves. So if you are uncomfortable, you're in pain, you're angry, you're confused, you're hurt, you don't have a problem, you have life, right? So finding mentors, finding professionals, finding a way through it, knowing that it's temporary. And I know for a fact from experience, when you're in it, you're like, it doesn't feel temporary. And again, where's the crystal ball that shows me that I will get out of this? But it is. And there is a way out. And there is always a way to seek better. And her 3rd takeaway is you can honor yourself without abandoning others. So she talks a lot about self-trust and that being sacred, but you can honor your truth even if it disrupts others' expectations. So I've talked a lot about like society's messages and just like being true to yourself. Don't worry what other people say. Being brave is not selfish. It means that you are trying to live an aligned life. And so, again, this comes with who you surround yourself with and the messages that you allow into your life. This goes along with all my conversations about boundaries and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and people who you want to be more like as much as possible. Number 4 takeaway is staying true to yourself could cost you, but so will abandoning yourself. So this kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about, but both paths cost something. A lot of people say like, choose your hard. So what's harder? What are you willing to give up, your peace or your performance? So, I had to go through this definitely when I was making my decision, like, Financially was probably the biggest difficulty, and like money can bring you stability, but not happiness. And there's even research that shows that after a certain salary point, I think it's $100,000, any money above that does not bring added happiness. And in fact, if I look at my own habits, I know that sometimes when I have less money, I'm smarter about money. That's probably a good lesson for me, if I'm being honest. But this just is like one of her hard hitting, I think, gut punchers is like, are you going to give up what's important to you and what makes you happy just because of what someone else thinks or said? Um, and that's harder, I think, when you're younger and easier when you're older. But it leads into her last takeaway, which is you're allowed to change your mind and your life. Like, it's funny because I think especially teaching, teachers a lot of times are lifers. They stay in that career or in education for their entire lives. And there's almost like I don't want to say a pressure, but it's just like how it's been, right? And I don't know, there's this big like, well, I've got to use the degree that I paid for. Okay, well, I worked 29 years. I invested my money. I, built up a pension and Social Security. And yeah, I'm walking away short of that, but I'm not done working, right? And it's going to look different, and I'm not going to be in the Wisconsin retirement system anymore, but I've evolved. And hardly anybody anymore stays in the same career for 3 decades, right? I think there's a statistic that people change jobs like every 3 to 5 years or something crazy like that. So you're not who you were 5 years ago. Oh my gosh, myself 5 years ago, I was going through a pandemic and a divorce with a middle schooler. It's crazy, how I have evolved in 5 years. It's been a huge evolution for me. And so who you were 5 years from now shouldn't be informing or defining who you have to be now. And I think sometimes people, I don't know, or society gives us a message like, well, if you're constantly changing, you're flaky or you're unsettled or you're impulsive. And I'm not saying change jobs every 3 months, right? But like, it's okay to grow and change and evolve and, take steps in a different direction that feel more aligned to yourself. So Glennon Doyle, overall, her messaging is, has been such a lifeline to me in many stages of my life. You don't need to be certain or fearless. You need to be truthful, trust your inner voice, and go one step at a time, even if it's hard, right? Because her motto is, we can do hard things. And so I highly recommend her book, Untamed, and the journal to go with it. And again, I had pre-ordered her We Can Do Hard Things. I know it's going to be amazing. I've listened to her podcast with her wife and her sister, and they're all super brilliant, all offering different perspectives. So I'm so excited to dig into that as well. So let's get into our kind of reflection and then action steps here. So a couple questions for you. What if you stop trying to figure it out and instead just listen to what's tugging at your heart? Okay, think about that for a minute. Had this in my identity journal as well. What's the smallest next step you could take today, even if nothing comes of it for years? Okay, it would just be a small step. And I want you to do a little visualization as well. So if it's 1 year from now and you're thriving and you're so happy and you're living aligned, what do you wish you'd started today? And that can go along with that first step. And I'm going to give one last plug for my free identity journal. And again, there are many journals out there. This one's short and free to get you started. Highly recommend Glennon Doyle's Untamed journal as well, or any ritual of small daily reflection. during a chapter of unknown. I hope you enjoyed all of this information. And, to recap, not knowing what's next isn't a failure. It's a beginning and it's an opportunity. And yes, I know it's scary, but it can also be exciting. Okay, so you are in the stage of becoming, right? Becoming a new version of yourself if you wish to do so. I would love to hear about your decisions and next steps that you're taking. So as always, you can reach out to me on Life's Next Lesson Plan on Instagram or Facebook. I would love for you to dig into either my journal or the Glennon Doyle journal and hear how you're liking it or what you've discovered. And I'd really like you to just ask yourself, what's one thing you're letting go of and one small thing you're stepping into or you would like to step into, okay? You can find more of my shenanigans on my YouTube channel, Life's Next Lesson Plan, where I count down my last final days and some camping adventures, as well as empty nest life and all good stuff like that, as well as my website. There's additional freebies there, lifesnextlessonplan.com. Would love to hear from you. Would love to see rates and reviews on the podcast if you have enjoyed it. Until next time, stay brave, stay curious, and remember, life's next lesson plan doesn't come with an answer key, but always begins with showing up. See you next time.